Hello viewers on YouTube. In this video tutorial, we are going to focus on converting units of temperature. Temperature can be measured in three different units, which include the Celsius, Fahrenheit, and the Kelvin. And to convert from any of these units, from one another, two methods can be employed, one of which include the use of equation and the other is the use of their corresponding skills. This video tutorial is basically designed to use the equations as a method of converting from one unit to another. So hopefully by the end of the video, you would be able to convert from any of these units to another. So let's talk about what you need to know. Two equation is the most crucial, one of which is the one that helps us to convert from temperatures that is measured in Celsius to temperature in Kelvin. To convert temperature in Celsius to Kelvin, which we would be representing temperature in Kelvin as T sub K, basically we need to add 273 to temperature in Celsius. 273. So that is the first equation that you need to be familiar with. For the second equation, it helps us to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit and is expressed as this. Temperature in Fahrenheit, T sub F, is simply equals to 9/5 multiplied by temperature in Celsius plus 32. So these are the two most crucial equations that you need to keep at the back of your mind. Once you know these two equations, then life is easy, as we will be using these two as a reference to how we'll be getting any other equation that we're going to be using to convert from any other units to another. Because clearly, as you can see right on the board, these two equations can only help us to convert temperature in Celsius to either Kelvin or Fahrenheit. Now, the question is, what if we are willing to convert from Kelvin to Celsius or Fahrenheit to Celsius? How do we do that? Well, since we know these two already, then it's easy for us because we can always isolate the temperature in Celsius. Let's consider the first equation, T sub, this one. If we isolate T sub C, you can clearly see that T sub C, let me add that in red. T sub C will now end up being T sub K minus 273 by the time we subtract 273 from both sides of this equation. And hence, we have the equation that can help us to convert temperature in Kelvin, right, to temperature in Celsius. Perfect. Similarly, we can always use this second equation to determine the equation that will help us to get the temperature in Celsius given the temperature in Fahrenheit. So let's isolate T sub C just as the way we did in equation 1. First and foremost, let's subtract 32 from both sides. This means we have T sub F minus 32 to be equals to 9/5 multiplied by T sub C plus 32 minus 32. This cancels out and we end up having T sub F minus 32 to be equals to 9/5 times T sub C. So basically, you can multiply both sides of the equation by the reciprocal of this. So multiplying with 5/9 and this with 5/9, we end up having this cancels out. And thus, we have our T sub C to be equals to 5/9 multiplied by T sub F minus 32. And this is the fourth equation we have to keep at the back of our mind. So like I said, once you know the first two, then you can always use them as reference so how you can get the other equations. Now, you might still have a question that all these four equations that we have actually stated can only help us to convert from either Kelvin to Celsius Fahrenheit to Celsius, or vice versa. Now, what if you are willing to convert from Kelvin all the way to Fahrenheit, or from Fahrenheit all the way to Kelvin? What should we do? What am I saying like this? What if you are willing to convert from K all the way to F, or from F all the way to K? Well, for this to be possible, which I see as one of the disadvantages of using the equation process or the equation method, is that you will need to convert to Celsius first. To convert from Kelvin to Fahrenheit, it's a two-step process. You have to go to Celsius and then now go to Fahrenheit. And same thing applies. If you are going from Fahrenheit to Kelvin, you have to go to Celsius first and then go all the way to Kelvin. And since you understand the process, I think that's bearable, that's preferable. So it's still a good one. Am I communicating? Perfect. So these are the basic things you actually need to keep in mind in order to succeed in solving problems involving the unit conversions of temperature. Now, like I said, that's one of the disadvantages of that, because if you're using the scale method, in the scale method, to convert from Kelvin to Fahrenheit, you don't need to go to Celsius first. You understand? But that cannot be as fast as possible as this. So I think they both have the other side. So let's consider some few more examples in order to put everything we have learned so far into good use. Example number 1. So we're having them in white. So how do we convert 86 degrees Celsius into Kelvin? So like we said, to go from Celsius to Kelvin, we basically need to add 273 to that angle. And thus we have our temperature in Kelvin to be equal to 86 plus 273. And what would that be? Let me use my calculator for that. 86 plus 273. So I got 359. And hence I have my temperature in Kelvin. So the unit of Kelvin is just K. It's not in degree Kelvin. It's only Celsius and Fahrenheit that are measured in degree. Are we together? Perfect. On to example number 2. Consider converting 45 degrees Celsius to temperature in Fahrenheit. So feel free to pause the video if you know what to do already. So basically, we need to employ this equation. So our temperature in Fahrenheit will simply be equal to 9.5 multiplied by 45 to minus 32. And this is equal. Now, be careful. Some students will subtract 32 from 45 before multiplying with 9.5. That is absolutely wrong. You do this first before you subtract. Please be cautious of that. So 9.5, let's say you use the fraction. 5 can go in 45, 9 places. And 9 by 9 is simply 81. So we have 9 over 32. So doing this, we should be left with 49. And that's our temperature in Fahrenheit. To make it degree Fahrenheit. So guys, that's how you can easily convert temperature from Celsius to either Kelvin or Fahrenheit. Am I communicating? Perfect. So now let's consider a few more examples. By the way, feel free to pause the video and figure this out yourself. So consider converting 317 in Kelvin to Celsius. Alright, we said to convert from Kelvin to Celsius, and this is the best equation to use. So basically, our temperature in Celsius will be equal to our temperature in Kelvin minus 273. I want to use my calculator for that. So 317 minus 273 end up giving 44. And thus, we have our temperature in degrees Celsius from Kelvin. Perfect. Few more examples. Consider converting 78 degree Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. So to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius, we said this right here is the best equation to use. Hence, our temperature in Celsius will simply be equal to 5 by 9 multiplied by our temperature in Fahrenheit, which is 78 minus 32. So doing this math, 78 minus 32 gives us 46. And we have 5 by 9 multiplied by 46. So if we multiply 5 divided by 9, it's 46. We got 25.55. Repeating. Thus, approximately, we have 25.6 degrees Celsius. And that's the corresponding measurement of the temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So, guys, I want to believe by now you should have been getting used to the tactics and the logic of solving problems involving the unit conversions of temperature. So let me do one example for you before we end the video. By the way, I would suggest you pause the video and figure this out yourself. So consider converting 300 Kelvin all the way to Fahrenheit. Feel free to try this out. Now, like I said, when you are going from Kelvin all the way to Fahrenheit, you basically need to go to Celsius first before going to Fahrenheit. So we need to have this in Celsius, and then after that we can have it in Fahrenheit. So to convert from Kelvin to Celsius, what do? We use this one. Thus, T sub C will simply be equal to 300 our temperature in Kelvin minus 273. And we have minus 273. And doing this subtraction, we got 27 degrees Celsius. Excellent. Now that we have our temperature in Celsius, we can now have it in Fahrenheit. To now have it in Fahrenheit, we need to use this equation. Right there. Perfect. Thus, T sub F will now be 9 by 5 multiplied by our temperature in Celsius, which is 27 plus 32. And doing this math, if I multiply 9 divided by 5 with 27, I would get 48.6. 48.6. If I had 32 to that, then that would simply be equal to 80.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And that gives us the solution to the problem, converting 300 Kelvin to degree Fahrenheit. So, I want to believe you don't know how to convert from a certain unit to one another. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now. So this is the exercise I have for you. Feel free to share your solution with me if you had a comment section below. Consider converting the temperature 310 in Fahrenheit to Kelvin. Thank you once again. Bye for now.